Imagine having to choose between saving one person you love the most or saving the entire human race. What would your brain actually force you to do? The Last of Us isn't just a survival game. It's a brutal psychological experiment disguised as a video game. It forces us to confront real scientific, philosophical concepts about who we are under pressure. Today we are going to deconstruct the 5 pillars that make this masterpiece so hauntingly real. Let's start with a strange question. Why is modern society so obsessed with the end of the world? According to Carl Gustav Jung and his concept of the collective unconscious, the apocalypse isn't just about destruction. It represents an archetype of death and rebirth. It's a purifying process. We subconsciously feel that the world has degenerated and needs to be wiped clean so something new can grow. This ties perfectly into the evolutionary mismatch theory. Our brains and bodies evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in hunter-gatherer societies to deal with immediate physical threats. Today we are stressed by mortgages, emails, social status. Abstract concepts our brains aren't built for, leading to chronic cortisol spikes. As sociologist Slavoj Žižek points out, apocalyptic fiction is a form of escapism from the exhausting complexity of late capitalism. When the world ends, depths are erased, social hierarchy vanish, and existence is reduced to clear, immediate actions. In The Last of Us, finding a rusty can of peaches or crafting shift gives us an ultimate sense of meaning and triumph that we lack in our modern bullshit jobs. This is amplified by game's aesthetic, known as post-apocalyptic sublime. Unlike grey and burnt wastelands of Fallout, this world is stunningly green. Nature is violently yet beautifully taking the planet back. When Joel and Ellie see the giraffes in Salt Lake City, it subconsciously tells us nature doesn't need us. It will heal and life will go on. But while nature heals, humanity devolves. The collapse of civilization in the game is the perfect sociological laboratory of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's rule is simple. If you don't have your basic physiological needs met, like food and safety, you lose the capacity of higher level morality. This creates radical tribalism, perfectly explained by Henry Tyffel's social identity theory, and Muzaffar Sharif's famous Robert's Cave experiment. Sharif proved in 1954 that normal boys in summer camp would turn into savage tribal enemies if forced to compete for limited resources. Every faction in the game operates on different level of Maslow pyramid. The hunters in Pittsburgh, stuck on the first level, they dehumanize outsiders, calling them tourists, and view murder simply as pragmatic way to get supplies. David's cannibals to psychologically survive their descent into eating humans. They created a dark religious cult to give themselves a fake sense of self-actualization, farming their horrors as divine necessity. Fedra. They maintain safety through military fascism, proving that people will gladly give you up freedom and respect if a state guarantees them food and protection from the infected. Tommystown, Jackson. The only group with secure food and power, meaning they are only ones who can afford the luxury of democracy and morality. Fireflies, paradoxical group. They are striving to save the world and find a vaccine, and endeavoring to operate at the pinnacle of moral, scientific self-fulfillment. However, they suffer from a lack of supplies and are being crushed militarily. Their desire for higher purpose compels them to commit utilitarian atrocities. The threat forcing humanity into these tribes isn't magical curse or space virus. It's grounded in terrifying evolutionary biology. In 1982, Richard Dawkins introduced the concept of the extended phenotype, arguing that parasites' genes can manipulate the behavior of its host to maximize its own reproduction. The game bases its infected on a real fungus, Ophiocordyceps unilateralis, heavily studied by entomologist David Hughes. In the real world, this fungus attacks ants. Through 3D scanning, Hughes discovered something horrifying. The fungus doesn't attack the ant's brain. It grows through the ant's muscles fibers, cutting off communication from the brain to the body. The ant becomes a mechanical puppet, forced to climb to a specific height and bite down on a leaf so the fungus can sprout from its head and sprout spores. The game applies this exact science to humans. Triggered by mutation caused by global warming, this means the runners in the game might still be fully consciousness inside. They cry and scream in pain, but their muscles and jaws are being piloted by the fungus. The biological realism emphasizes our insignificance. Against this brutal backdrop, we follow Joel and Ellie. Their journey isn't about survival. It's clinical study of PTSD and attachment theory. Psychiatrist John Bowlby proved that forming emotional attachments isn't just a whim, it's an evolutionary imperative for survival. But what happens when that bond is eventually broken? As Basil van der Kolk explains in The Body Keeps the Score, severe trauma changes the brain's architecture. Joel's brain is stuck in a state of physiological alarm. His amygdala is hyperactive, while his prefrontal cortex and Broca's area are suppressed. Joel exhibits emotional numbing, wrapping himself in armor to survive. He refuses to talk about the past and pushes people away using an avoidant attachment style, because his brain views intimacy as threat of future pain. Ellie, on the other hand, suffers from survival's guilt and anxious attachment style. Everyone she loves dies, so she desperately seeks validation and secure bond, wanting her immunity to mean something so her life has value. The game acts as forces exposure therapy for Joel. He fights his evolutionary instinct to protect the child, explicitly telling her, "You are not my daughter."
You're right. You're not my daughter.
The psychological breakthrough only happens in the winter when the roles are reversed and Ellie cares for wounded Joel. When he rescues her from the burning restaurant, he calls her baby girl, the exact name he called his daughter.
Oh, baby girl.
His trauma is defeated. The evolutionary need for a law is finally break through 20 years of PTSD armor. Ironically, this beautiful healing is what dooms humanity. At the final at St. Mary's Hospital is brilliant, interactive execution of Trolley Problem, a moral dilemma introduced by Philippa Foot in 1967 and expanded by Judith Jarvis Thompson. Fireflies, led by Marilyn, operate on pure utilitarianism, founded by Jeremy Bentham. The math is simple: pull the lever, sacrifice one child to save millions. but Joel operates on deontology, defined by Immanuel Kant, which states a human being must never be used as mere means to an end. Harvard neuroscientist Joshua Greene studied the Trolley problem using fMRI scans. He found that pulling a lever activates the logical prefrontal cortex. But if you have to physically push a man to his death to save others, the emotional amygdala flares up, and humans biologically reject the action. The Fireflies abstracted the reality into a math equation using logic. Joel, driven by his amygdala and his newly healed evolutionary bond, reject the math. The true power of his ending lies in interactivity. The game forces you, the player, to walk into the operating room and physically press a button to shoot the surgeon. You are forced to abandon the rational utilitarianism and submit to Joel's emotional deontology. And by lying to Ellie at the end, Joel robs her of her anatomy, because he knows she would have chosen to be the sacrifice. It is the ultimate price he is willing to pay, so he never has to experience loss again. The Last of Us doesn't teach us how to survive fungal infection. Through scientific naturalism and deep psychology, it holds mirror up to who we are when the pressure is on. Thank you for watching.